As we've mentioned before, and it bears mentioning again, food procurement is best approached from a passive standpoint. A lot of people have a romantic notion that we're going to go out and hunt to survive, and that's just not going to happen. We hear the term hunter-gatherer. I think, probably emphasis on the gatherer/trapper, passive food collection. And so what we have here is an example of the Paiute Deadfall. One problem with the conventional Paiute Deadfall is they have a tendency under pressure to want to twist, and they can be quite difficult to set. So this particular design is one that comes to me by way of my friend Justin Cook. And so I want to make sure that I credit him with that. He calls it the Y-bone. So it's the Justin Cook Y-bone Deadfall. And this is basically the same principle as your conventional Paiute, with the exception of this Y stick, which is, as I'll show you later, it's sharpened on both ends for stability. And there's also a notch cut in the top so that our lever stick has a place to rest. So it's very, very stable and very easy to set up. With any trap, we always want to think about location. It's just like a good restaurant. It's all about location. We want to channelize our animals into here. We might put logs, we might put sticks in the ground, something to kind of entice them to place their head where we want it to be. And then of course we're going to have some type of bait, and we want to get their head as far under the killing weight as possible. And depending on what it is that you're after, you would size your kill weight appropriately, at least double the body weight of that which you intend to kill as a general rule. These things can trap chipmunks, any type of rodents, all the way up to use your imagination. And what's interesting, to overcome that twisting tendency with the Paiute, another friend of mine, Jose Martinez Amwedo, who you may know from the Alone Show, lives up in the Yukon, he came up with the exact same variation as Justin, except his is the opposite. He puts his fork stick to the top to stabilize the weight that way. So that was an interesting feature as well. You could do it either way, but with his variation, you're still going around the stick. So I kind of like this one a little better. The toggle comes underneath the crotch of this Y. But really easy to set up, and you would place your bait somewhere on this stick so that when it's triggered, bam, the kill weight comes down. And so you can see where my stick is. I'm going to pin it in place and raise this back up. That would represent where the head would have been. You can see right here. See, there would have been the killing weight. So it's important when we stage this that we have our angle of the rock enough so that it provides that good thump that we want, and we also want to have it out of the path of the fork stick. We don't want a situation like that to happen in the triggering of the trap, and then of course you're not going to kill anything that way. So let's look at some of the mechanics of this thing. Of course you're going to need some kind of a rock. This probably isn't the most optimal rock. You can see it has a little bit of a concavity here. This is just for demonstration purposes. If I were really going to be doing this to eat, I would want a rock that did not have this concavity, because that's just dead space. I want something hard underneath where the two things, maybe even a kill stone set up underneath, so that I've got two hard surfaces striking the head of that animal to dispatch it quickly and to make sure that it's not going to get away. So we're going to need a good killing weight. It could be logs, it could be rocks, whatever you happen to have available. The other components of the trap is you're going to need one branch that has a fork in it. And you can see that I've sharpened both ends. That's so that I can place them in the ground, because under the weight and pressure of that string, it has a tendency to want to flip out this way. So by placing those legs in the ground, I get stability. Another thing I've done is I've sharpened this top portion into a wedge. And then lastly, I've created a little divot here. That facilitates the resting of the lever stick and gives it the cantilevering action that we want without any type of ability to slide off track and jump to the side. And then lastly, we have a toggle, which I have kind of shaped like an airplane wing. I've taken my knife and smoothed the edges so that the bait stick, which is also sharpened, has a small point of contact, and when it's touched, it has the tendency to want to just skitter off the side of that. So you can adjust your sensitivity with your knife and how you make these angles happen. You can make it more or less sensitive just with a little bit of knife work. So our components for this trap are a fork stick, the modifications of which I've already described. You're going to need your lever stick, which is a gently curved piece I find works well. I'll cut a notch in so that the cordage can ride there and not jump track. We're going to need a small piece of wood, also with a groove in it for our toggle. And then our bait stick is just any random stick. You'll have to cut it to the desired length, and it's good to kind of sharpen the ends. Now, as far as setting it, there's two ways to approach that. One way is a friction fit, which I generally don't use. You can make your bait stick long enough and I like to have a little extra cord here on the end. You see how this is too slack? Because it's not going to set up the same way twice. So by wrapping that end around, I can get just the right amount of tension. See, that tends to work pretty well. So you can do a friction fit where you put one end against the toggle and one end against your kill weight. But what I generally like to do is come into the ground and then put the other end against my toggle. Something kind of like that. Or you can run it from the toggle and friction fit it to some point back inside the kill weight. Whichever option you prefer. I have found both to be effective. It just all depends on how it interfaces with that toggle as to the sensitivity for the trap. So there it is, the Justin Cook Y-Bone Deadfall. A very good variation of the ancient Paiute trap, and as we've said many times, passive food collection is where it's at, and this is a numbers game, okay? So don't think you're going to set one or two of these. Be thinking in terms of setting at least 10 of these. And if you're near water, you need to set some traps in the water as well. But the more the better. I mean, it's a numbers game for sure.